Yo, what's going on, everyone? This is Valoramous. In today's music business tutorial, we're going to discuss the multiple hats that you must wear as a DJ, a producer, and as an independent artist in order to succeed in this music industry in the 2020s. So I thought a little bit about this myself and what I've done the past several years, and I've really had to become skillful in a variety of different domains and tasks and subjects, and I just want to provide my thoughts on this subject and how you can utilize this knowledge to your advantage to develop these skill sets and then begin to outsource certain tasks that no longer serve you, or what I would consider to be secondary tasks, and then free up more time to allow you as a DJ, producer, and artist to focus on the primary task, which is practicing DJing, learning how to become a better instrumental composer, learning how to become a better mixing engineer, vocal engineer, mastering engineer, etc., and then developing your branding. So we're going to start with a couple of the tasks that I've done over the past few years, and I would like to start with first, and that is one of graphic design. So as a DJ, producer, and as an independent artist, you will need to develop some skills as a graphic design artist. So there are multiple programs out there that you can use to develop these skills. So you will need to develop graphic design skills, and there's multiple websites and also programs you can use, but you will develop graphic design skills for the purpose of creating DJ flyers, of creating album covers, of creating thumbnails for YouTube, of creating social media banners to promote your upcoming release. You will need to become familiar with how to manipulate text, how to resize text, how to make content look more visually appealing, and this is mostly still images. So graphic design. You could also use graphic design skills to enhance, it's sort of like PowerPoint skills. You're learning how to use text boxes and bubbles and arrows and shapes to create a more aesthetically pleasing image, album cover, social media thumbnail, YouTube thumbnail, etc., as a DJ, a producer, and an independent artist. So graphic design skill is number one. Second is an admin specialist. An admin specialist, you will need to become familiar with how to track your music releases, how to compose emails, how to stay organized, how to schedule, how to prioritize, editing emails, communication with other artists. These are certain skills that as an admin specialist you will need to know in order to improve your chances of success as an independent artist. The third skill set is manager. Managers coordinate tours, managers handle a lot of the strategic communications, managers assign tasks to different individuals, managers put together and operationalize the artist, whether on tour, in the studio, or just in general. Managers can handle a lot, such as booking hotels, arranging flights. Without managers and without your own ability to self-manage yourself, you are going to be flapping out there in the wind, and you may have a loss of direction. You may have a loss of sense of direction on where you should be going with the overall project. So knowing how to manage yourself is important. If you can handle a lot of these tasks, logistically, operationally, these are the tasks that managers do. So I provided a few examples, but really the sky's the limit. Managers are quite important to keep you on track on what you're doing in order to achieve your vision as a DJ, producer, and as an independent artist. Now, the fourth skill set that I've had to develop as a DJ, producer, and independent artist is that of a video editor. This is extremely time consuming because I shoot these videos and then I must edit the videos through video editing software. And video editing is actually fairly similar to editing my tracks, mixing my tracks. A lot of the concepts still apply. Simple gain staging, volume, leveling, fade-ins, fade-outs, some EQ. But you will need to know how to edit videos, whether it's short, reel, vertical content, or whether it's long-form content such as on YouTube, or videos from your DJ sets, videos from your live gigs, videos from your performances, your concerts. Knowing how to at least conduct some basic video editing tasks will go a long way, because you will not always have the resources to outsource every single task. Now, I consider this task to be a secondary task, so sometimes I will outsource this task, but it does behoove you to at least develop a basic skill set in this domain. So that is video editing. Okay, another skill set I've had to develop as a DJ, producer, and as an independent artist is that of a strategist. Strategists consider the long ball game, they consider the vision, they consider where you're actually going. What is your strategic end state? I've had to think strategically and define those ends, and then use my resources to achieve certain effects, which will then drive forward my strategy with what I'm doing as a DJ, producer, and independent artist. So this could be the role of a manager, it could be the role of a record label, it could be the role of a record label executive. But if you can begin to think strategically, you will then be able to more effectively implement the various tasks that you must do, because your tasks should be in line with your end state, your strategy, and what you're ultimately trying to achieve. So thinking like a strategist is important, and it's a very underappreciated skill set, I would say. The sixth task that I've had to develop is that of a marketing specialist. So marketing and promotion, this is how you define how you're going to achieve something. And marketing could come through affiliate marketing, it could come through email marketing, you could be promoting your music through various sources, radio stations, DJs, Spotify playlists, etc. But you need to understand some aspects of marketing in order to better promote yourself. Now, the next task that I've had to develop is that of a branding expert. Branding expert is your identity, it's your image, it's the who, it's the what, versus the marketing and the promotion, which is the how you're going to better sell yourself to drive sales and drive engagement. But understanding branding, that is really who you are as an artist, and you need to think like a branding expert in order to increase your image and then increase your chances of success as a DJ, producer, and as an independent artist. But this branding and marketing, the last two tasks, also goes hand in hand with the next hat that you must wear, and that is as a publicist. A publicist understands the branding, understands the marketing, and then has the ability to write, edit, and conduct strategic forms of communication, contact with publications, with editorial magazines, with press, in order to publicize what you're doing as a DJ and producer. So if you have admin skills, if you have writing skills, if you have editorial type skills, maybe you work for your school magazine or newspaper, this will help you as a DJ or producer, as an independent artist, because the ability to write is another underappreciated skill set, because you will need to do tasks over email and even sometimes in the DM on Instagram to better publicize yourself. And the ability to craft a professional email is a skill set that will go a long way as a DJ, producer, and as an independent artist. Okay, the next hat that I've had to develop is that of an agent or a booking agent. So there are promoters, there are booking agents at various venues in your cities and in other venues in other cities and countries. But knowing how to market yourself, knowing how to talk to venue owners, managers, knowing how to find these gigs is an art and a science in and of itself. And so developing skills as a booking agent is another hat that I've had to develop. And gigs, if you know anything about being a DJ, they don't just come to you unless you develop a reputation in your local city. So understanding how to promote yourself without bragging and relate to others in your city, this can go a long way with helping you to obtain gigs. And so you won't always be able to outsource this task unless you plan to outsource a share of the gig monies themselves. So generally, booking agents will take a cut of the gigs that they find for you as the DJ, producer, and independent artist. So agent is the next hat. Okay, another task is that of a sound engineer. So you must understand, if you're a DJ, various types of stereo systems, how to check the room acoustics. It's a bit different when you're DJing in a large venue versus producing music in your studio. You must be able to walk around the room, listen for sounds from subwoofers, from speakers, high and also low in the venue. You must know how to connect to these systems. So this is the technical geeky side as a DJ. Because as a DJ, it's not just about knowing how to do the skills and tricks on the decks themselves, but you're also responsible for the sound in that venue, and the people that hired you will blame you as the DJ. So developing skills as a sound engineer, this is also important too, and it's a task that you should not necessarily ignore, especially if you're playing live, because there will be issues that will arise in these gigs. I've had a variety of issues that have arisen throughout my experience DJing in multiple different venues and multiple different locations that you will need to overcome. These are challenges that you should not panic in the moment, but essentially you'll react to the scenario and you'll know which steps to apply to either troubleshoot the issue or fix and solve the issue. So sound engineer is another task, and it's a skill set that I've had to develop. Next, we have that of a record label or record label executive. So if you self-release your music, you are already behaving in the fashion as a record label. You understand distribution, and of course branding and marketing as well, but the distribution and management, inputting of royalties, of the various forms of copyright. You have publishing copyright and you have the master recording copyright for your songs. These are all tasks that record labels do, because at the end of the day, this is the pocketbooks of the overall music operation itself. So knowing how to behave like a record label executive is another hat that I've had to develop, at least a moderate skill set here, so you will not get ripped off if you send your tracks to record labels and they send you a contract that is an unfair 360 deal, or a contract that's trying to take more of your publishing or a higher percentages of the two forms of copyright and royalties that they should. So knowing how to think like a record label will save you from getting ripped off from some of these scam record labels. Okay, the next hat that I've had to develop is that of a web page designer and an IT specialist. My skills here are lacking, but I have developed enough of a skill set in order to register a domain name, create my Valoramous.com webpage, and know how to manipulate these stock web page building websites in order to create a web page. I'm no IT specialist, but I can follow instructions. I can use the interfaces of these web pages to create my own personal web page. But I have had to develop some skills as an IT specialist and a web page designer via registering a domain name and then creating the web page itself and linking the two. So this is another hat that I've had to wear. The next hat I've had to wear is that of a social media content creator. So musicians, artists, DJs, producers nowadays, we cannot simply just worry about the music. We have to create content now, which is what artists did not have to do back in the 1990s and the early 2000s when social media wasn't a thing or it was just starting. So knowing how to create different forms of content, this is a skill, it's a science and an art in and of itself. And in order to better market and promote yourself and also help and connect with others, which is part of your branding, creating content goes hand in hand. So these are the additional hats that I've had to wear. I'm counting 13 hats that I've just named. There's many more, but there's more than a dozen hats that you, as a DJ, a producer, and as an independent artist, must develop at least a modicum of skills in order to compete in this very competitive marketplace. So those are the additional hats, and that's not even saying anything about the main hats that you must wear. So this is very complex and very competitive, because then the primary hats, which are the primary tasks that I consider, that is mastering my craft as a DJ, it's becoming a better producer, and then becoming a better vocal mixing engineer. Because mixing vocals is another side of music production, in my opinion, because tuning vocals, mixing vocals, applying reverb, compression, saturation on vocals is extremely complex. Vocals are much more dynamic versus synthesized and other forms of MIDI instruments that you would have in your DAW or digital audio workstation. So this could be hats number 14, 15, and 16 that you must develop as a DJ, producer, and independent artist. So 16 hats that I have thought of off the top of my head that you must develop skills to become better. Now let's talk about what you can do about all this information. So the 3 primary hats, and then you have the 13 secondary hats. You can't ignore all these 13 secondary hats. You must become a master of the 3 primary hats. So spend most of your efforts, I would say at least 50% of your time, on these 3 primary hats: DJing, music producer, vocal, mixing engineer. The 13 hats, obviously, you cannot ignore, but until your music is up to a certain level, you do not need to go gung-ho or full force, 6 gear, full speed ahead with the other 13 sub-hats. But you need to develop some skills in some of the areas you need to prioritize. So if you want to develop better DJ skills, you will need to obtain some DJ gigs. So that's when the hat of agent becomes important. That's when the hat of branding becomes important, or marketing, but primarily agent, or also manager, that becomes important. Admin specialist could be important as well. If you're writing email that could be conceived as having attitude to where the person on the other end, who maybe has never met you in person, will disregard or dismiss your email. So admin specialist, that helps. Booking agent, manager. Now, how to develop, you also have to worry about a little bit of social media presence. I'd say up front, Instagram is the most important, at least right now, in the 2020s. It could be a different platform in the future. You don't need to focus on every platform. There's a multitude of platforms out there, social media platforms. So focus on social media content on maybe one platform such as Instagram. You don't need to go gung-ho, but create a modicum of content, create a small amount of content that can at least start to get yourself out there. You could ignore some hats such as web page designer. You could probably even get away with not knowing how to do video editing up front. Graphic design, you may need to develop a little bit, because if you're not releasing music, you may not need to know graphic design for creating album covers, but what about DJ gigs? You need to know how to create a DJ flyer and then maybe send that to the venue or promote that on social media so folks know that you're playing in the city. Of course, you could not do that and you could just simply show up and play. I've done that before. But it does help to know a little bit of skills within the graphic design hat itself. So those are just a few examples. Okay, and then label executive or record label owner, and then strategist. You could probably ignore these tasks initially. These will come into play later, I think. Up front, you could probably ignore these tasks. But again, the whole point is you need to prioritize initially. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew if you're just first starting out. I agree with you that it's actually somewhat unfair. It's somewhat egregious on what is expected of artists and DJs and producers nowadays. There's a lot of tasks, and a lot of these tasks, of course, unfortunately, are unpaid. And who ends up paying the cost is guys like you and I, because we're the ones that have to go out there and integrate and synthesize all these different skill sets into a product. And that product is oftentimes, unfortunately, underappreciated. Not to complain, it's just the reality of the way it is. So there you have it. That is my explanation, my music business tutorial on the various hats that you as a DJ, producer, and independent artist must wear. I think there's 3 primary hats, potentially a 4th one with that sound engineer, and then you have 12, 13, but definitely more various sub hats, secondary tasks that you must perform as a DJ in order to increase your chances of success in this industry. It's a very competitive industry. You must understand a lot, from legal ramifications to admin work to logistical and operational work to the actual skills that you really want to do, the primary skills as a DJ and a producer. And I definitely empathize with you if you're watching this video and you're probably nodding your head at the amount of work that you must do. So take it one step at a time, take it one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year at a time, even 1 decade at a time. And I promise you, if you continue to apply yourself, you will get better and you will raise the overall level of your skills across the board. And then in certain months and certain seasons and calendar years, you'll be able to focus more on different tasks and kind of disregard other tasks. Because, for example, once you develop some skills as a sound engineer, you're not necessarily going to need to spend more effort on developing skills as a sound engineer. Or if you have a basic skill set as a graphic design artist, you don't need to have complex graphic design as a DJ in order to get the message across that you have a gig upcoming this Friday night or this Saturday night in town. So there you have it. That's my video on all the hats you must wear as a DJ, producer, and independent artist. If you have any other comments, questions, tips, tricks, or concerns, please leave those in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.
3, 2, 1, lose it. Let's get elevated.